Hello and welcome. I'm your host, author Ryan M. Oliver, and this is the Mighty Books Podcast. This episode's featured author is Emily Hunt. Author Emily Hunt lives in rural Washington. She has written stories since she was a child, and her first book, Enemy in the Highlands, was published in April 2022. She's a stay-at-home mom to 4 children, and when she isn't writing, Emily enjoys reading historical fiction, working in her yard, and baking for her family. Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another episode of the Mighty Books Podcast. Today with me, I have Emily Hunt. Emily, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Ryan. Happy to be here.
I'm so glad to hear that. So today we're here to talk about your book. What's the title of your book?
The title is Enemy in the Highlands.
And can you tell us a little bit about it?
I will, yes. So it's a story about a young woman in Scotland in the 1400s, and her village just got attacked by their enemies, and her parents get killed in the attack. And now winter is setting in, and her brother brings home an injured man that he finds upon the moors. And Eleanor is convinced that this is the warrior that led the raid on her village. And so she has to decide, is she going to stay loyal to her clan and turn this man in to the authorities of her village, or will she help her brother hide him and take care of him and kind of get him back on his feet? It's a novella, so it's a short and sweet read, and it's historical fiction, which is my favorite genre.
Oh, really? It's historical fiction. So when you say historical fiction, a lot of times there is obviously there's some truth in the historical fiction. You know, the event itself is fiction, but was this based off of an event or a like event that occurred that we know about?
Yes, it is inspired by true events that happened among Scottish clans in the 1400s.
Oh, very cool. Now, I found it interesting because I've gotten through about 5 or 6 chapters so far, and I mean it's a very nice read. It flows
Well,
really nice. Oh,
thank you.
you're welcome. Flows very nice, and the chapters are perfect length. But you're like you want to know what's up next, and you leave it a little cliffhanger on each one, which is very well done. I was curious on the language, the accent. You have to have a little bit of accent to make it, and it's obvious. Like when I read it, I do like a Scottish accent in my head. Like that's how I do it. How did that
Good.
affect your speed or your?
I knew you would ask about this. Um, Actually putting the accent in was really challenging, but it was also really fun.
Yeah.
I wanted to put in just enough to give you, as the reader, a taste of this is definitely Scottish people and this is how they speak. But I didn't want to bog the reader down too much with what are they saying? You know. So I'm glad that when you, as the reader, are going through it, that you can hear that, and it aids the story and builds those characters instead of weighs you down. You don't know
No, I
what's
like
going
it.
on.
It does not weigh it down. There's a couple ones that were like, wait, is that? And then I said it. I'm like, oh wait, no, that's they're saying. It's kind of I don't know. It's kind of a fun discovery that that's how they are saying it, and it's unique to these 4 people who are in the house right now. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. Okay.
And they've just gotten to the point where the scout to kind of investigate what's going on in this in
Hmm.
their area, just to kind of have a conversation. So they're hiding the one guy who comes back
Yes.
or who gets
Yeah.
picked up. So, and I was like, okay, I like this. So now what inspired you to write this particular story?
That's a great question. I think a couple different things. I've always wanted to write a book for my sisters. I come from a large family, so as a child, I was always making up stories to entertain them, my younger siblings. So I really wanted this book to be something that they, as young women, and one of them as a teenager, that they would enjoy. But I think I mostly also wrote this book for myself.
Mhm.
I've always wanted to be a writer, to be a published author, because it's one thing to write, it's another thing to hold your book.
Mhm. Yes.
So I really needed to prove to myself that I could start a project, I could finish a project, and actually hold it in my hands. I did it for my sisters, I did it for me
Yeah.
as well.
Well, that's great. What made you decide on the Highland?
When I was thinking of this book, when I was thinking of this story, I just saw in my mind, in my planning, my brainstorming of oh, I've got this idea, and I can see it in my mind like a scene in a movie. And there was a scene of Eleanor and her brother and this injured man in their home. And I was like, I see these characters and there's good stuff going on here, but I don't know who they are and I don't know where they are. But I kept working with this idea, and I don't remember, honestly, I don't even remember why Scotland. I do love the movie Brave,
I was
which
gonna
we
say.
which we own and my boys love to
Mm-hmm.
watch. So I do like that idea of Scotland and I love the accent.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember why I settled on Scotland, but it just clicked. And the more I dug into Scottish history and the Highlands and the clans, it was like, oh yes, this is a good fit for the story that I had already started working on.
Oh, cool. Now, do you have any Scottish heritage?
I don't know, maybe.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
mean, I have a lot of red-haired siblings, so maybe.
Now, any good feedback?
Yeah, I've received a lot of great feedback for my story, which
Good.
has been so delightful. I have quite a few good reviews on Amazon, which is exciting to see those pop up. And I've also had a lot of friends, friends and family who've come to me and just said, we loved your book. We really like that, how it's written and that they just zoomed right through it and enjoyed it. And that was really the wind in my sails to like, wow, this is really encouraging to me
Hmm.
because as I was writing, I was kind of doing it like not really telling anybody that I was working on this story because then everybody holds you accountable and they're like, well, did you publish that book? And it's like, no,
Yeah,
not
exactly.
yet. So I kind of kept it quiet. And then, so as I was sharing, like, hey, I'm publishing a book, it's coming out, it came out last April in 2022. Everyone, friends and family were surprised and really excited. And so once they got the book and read it and started sharing how much they enjoyed it, I was like, yeah, I think I can keep writing just from their encouragement and enthusiasm. I really
Yeah.
rode that wave.
I like that you started off with a novella too. What I've heard from many other authors and other publishers and marketing people, when you start with a shorter novel, it tends to people they can consume it faster, and then it's like
Yes.
they already got you. They're like, hey, I got this done in a day or 2 days,
Yeah.
and then it's like your interest is immediately grabbed. It doesn't take them 3 days or it doesn't take them 3 weeks or months or even a year to get through a book because it's just so
Oh
thick,
yeah.
daunting. You see something a little smaller, you're like, oh, I can get through this, and a small amount of time, in between, nap time or work or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's a little more easy to digest. So I'm glad it's a good thing to start
It
with that.
is. Yeah. And some people, they pump out like 500-page pieces of fiction. I'm like, how can somebody have so much to say? I mean, good for them, but really?
Mhm.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. I know myself, my second one's going to be about that long, but it's taking me a
Oh, is
long
it?
time. Yeah, it's nuts. It's just a big story, and it won't stop, and it's driving me insane. I wish I could do little, nice novellas or,
Mm-hmm.
continuously. Well, with that said, are you planning on doing a sequel to this one, or is after the end of this one, you tied the bow on that story and that one's done?
Well, some of the feedback that I was receiving from people was like, we love this story. It was very good. Are you going to write more? We want more of this character. Everybody said, I mean, my book is so short, delightfully short. Like
Mhm.
go out and read it, people.
It is. It's charming,
um,
charmingly short. It's perfect.
but everybody was like, it was so short. Are you going to do more? And the answer is yes. I'm actually in the middle of writing a sequel when I have time,
Hmm.
and the story is coming along pretty well, I think. And I haven't really shared too much about yet what it's about. But in Enemy in the Highlands, you meet Eleanor. She's the main character. You also meet her brother Cedric, who is the village physician. And so the sequel is going to be about Cedric a few years into the future after Enemy in the Highlands. I really wanted to work with him as a character and kind of develop his story a little bit more.
Hmm.
So that's what that one's going to be about.
I like it. I like the two of them. They're dynamic. They're obviously they're brother sister, so they got that love hate relationship. I mean, it's obvious,
Yes.
and they're Scottish, so they're passionate. So, it's fun reading Eleanor's side because she gets huffy about her brother being kind of just discourteous, or he's being short, and then he's getting upset with her because of just brother sister stuff, and it works really well. But it's interesting because the dynamic changes and you can almost feel it because like you said, their parents were taken from them. They died.
Hmm.
And so you can almost feel that kind of like air of responsibility that he's now taken over as the man of the house.
Yes,
She's the, well, she 21, I believe, in the story.
I think so.
21.
Yeah, around there.
Yeah. And you can tell that she's growing into her own self too. And so it's just a good dynamic. So your characters, I'm curious about your characters. Now you said you have two sisters?
I have three,
Three
three
sisters.
younger
Okay.
sisters. Hmm.
Okay. Oh, the oldest is, oh my gosh. Busy, busy family. So you don't have a brother. So did you have to kind of like ask about like that kind of dynamic, that relationship? How did that go into writing this book?
Oh, that's well, actually, I have three younger sisters and I have three younger brothers, and
Oh,
so
you do?
it was
Oh
very easy to write
my
the brother
goodness.
sister relationship there.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I misunderstood. Holy cow. You have a big family. That's a wonderful thing. So chaos is great. When you're with
Oh yeah.
family. It can be challenging, but it's fun. It can be very fun. Lots of fun stories.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah,
Yeah. So then you yourself, you have four kids.
I do. Yeah.
When do you find time to write? Because it's a challenge for me, and I have two.
Yeah, I don't find time, I make time.
Ah, there you go.
And I think I mean, with anybody in their hobby, right? You kind of have to fight for that. Not literally fight, but like
Yeah.
you have to be the one to find time during the day. And so for me, there's a little window of time where my two youngest are taking naps and my two older ones are usually playing quietly, supposed to be playing quietly together. And that's when I will hide away and whip open the laptop and just try to get something done.
Right.
And I don't set goals throughout the week of like, oh, I want to write, this many hours or this many words, because that can be really discouraging as, a mom to four little ones. And I think a week is a good writing week if I can just open the laptop a couple times and just jot a few things down and just work as I can.
Yeah.
And that's a good week for me, is just doing as much as I can when I have that pocket
Well,
of time.
I like your attitude towards that, because setting those realistic goals is really helpful to your mental strength, their mental health, because
Yeah.
it gets very discouraging. For me, I want to get this many words done a day.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I set it pretty, low bar, 100 words a day. And I think that's about 10 minutes of solid work. If I can
Yeah.
squeeze 10 minutes of my day, it works great. Sometimes I have no time to fit any of that. So just like, hey, I opened the laptop a couple times, I got some notes down. That's
Yep.
progress. So I mean,
Yeah.
that's a very healthy way to go about getting some things done. It's very healthy.
Yeah.
So when you were writing and publishing, what would you say was the easiest or maybe the most fun aspect of writing and publishing your book?
Oh man, the most fun was just working with my characters. You mentioned their accents. And so I would, as I was, my fingers are flying
Hmm.
as I'm, writing everything out, I would stop and I would like, speak out loud this argument that the siblings are having and trying to work out, well, how would they say that? How do you write that in Scottish dialect? So I really love when I'm writing to make my characters talk.
Hmm.
And, I love to work with dialogue between my characters without making it like boring or
Yeah.
too much. So that was just a delight. I thought that the story, once I started writing, it was just all there. This story flowed so easily from my imagination onto the page, and it was almost effortless
Yeah.
at the time to just get it out, and that was wonderful. I would I just enjoyed writing the whole thing, I think,
That's
but
good.
mostly the interaction between characters, because I mean that's what our lives are, right? Like interacting
Yeah.
between people and how people speak or their body language, that's so interesting to me, and being
Hmm.
able to capture that and
Hmm.
put it in my work. It's
Yep.
one of my favorite things about writing.
I agree. I enjoy the dialogue aspect. When I was younger, I liked the scene setting better for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've gotten older, like, no, I want to hear people talk. I want to hear some attitude. I want to hear,
Yeah.
an opinion and then a rebuttal. I want to hear this back and forth, because
Mm-hmm.
that's the energy that comes from the story. I mean, it's the people. It's
Yeah.
not about the wind blowing through the trees. Well, that's very nice. You know, the snow on the ground,
Yeah.
that's very pretty. But I want to
Hmm.
hear, how does that affect the people you're writing about? How does it affect the people living in this world?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, on the flip side of that, that was the easiest and most fun. What was the most challenging, you know, bang your head against the wall, challenging part about writing and publishing?
The editing. I mean, I hate editing because
Yeah.
you write out a scene and you're like, oh, this is so good, and then you find out maybe it needs some work,
Uh-huh.
and then you kind of have to not love your work as much, so you can start cutting the things away to make it
Yeah.
tight and writing tight and making it easy to read. And so the editing is just it's tedious and long. It's worth it, but it's not my favorite. I just
Right.
want to speed through the fun part and be like, it's done.
Yeah.
Read my
Yeah.
book. The editing and just the waiting of like waiting, to hear back from publisher and hear back from the people who were reading my story to give it feedback. It's like,
Yeah.
are you? I don't want to be nosy, but are you done yet?
Right. Right. Did you have a lot to change, or was there a little bit, just a little bit of changing going on with your editor and alpha and beta
um,
readers and all that?
not a whole lot. I think I have a friend who is a wonderful line editor, and so she said, "Hey, I can do that for you."
Mhm.
And she was merciless, and it was so good for my writing. But she really helped me write. It wasn't so much of like, Eleanor did this, and then she looked over here. It was like she has a way with rewriting sentences and really helped me see how so many of my sentences could just be reconstructed so they sound better
Mhm.
read out loud or as you're reading quietly in your head. So she really helped me figure that out. And now, as I'm writing my sequel, I'll stop and I'm like, okay, this sentence is really lame. How can I rewrite it to make it just flow? And that was quite a good exercise for me in
Yeah.
editing Enemy in the Highlands.
Mhm.
Aside from line editing, there wasn't a whole lot of like big things that needed changed, which is good for me.
Yeah, yeah. Because when you have to change some big stuff, you got to move things around, and that just takes a whole lot of work. It just takes a
Yeah.
whole lot of work. That's just,
Uh-huh.
it's like reconstructing a house. It's just we got to make a lot of things messy before we make them clean again. This is
Yes.
going to be rough. Well, it's good that your editor is, as you put it, merciless. It sounds terrible when you say it like that, but it's got to be. They got to be a little ruthless with how they
Mm-hmm.
describe things. Like, hey, this has got great potential. However, you need to work on this, or this is
Yeah.
really boring, but we should make this to make it more fun. We can do it like this. And the fact that you learned from that and now you're doing it as you write, it's just going to make your process go that much faster too.
Yeah, I hope so.
When you were a kid, you said you wanted to be an author for quite a while.
Yeah.
You were writing for a while. Any book or story inspire you to go, I really want to create something of my own?
Oh, that's a good one. I grew up going to the library like crazy when I was very, very young. And the books that I loved and I kept going back to were the Bill Peet children's books. I mean, if you ever read any of those, they were children's books. They were like to read them now to my kids. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so wordy. They were all in poem form,
Okay.
but it was the pictures that I loved the most. The pictures really told a lot of the story,
Mhm.
not the thousands of lines of text. So I grew up, reading a lot of these Bill Peet older stories,
Okay.
really good. I don't know if any one particular children's or young adult book was like, oh, this is why I want to write.
Right.
Like if there was one that kind of pushed me in that direction. I've always loved to read. I've always loved being, as a child, loved being read to.
Mhm.
And as I got older, I started just making up my own stories. And I think my first story I made, I was 7,
Yeah.
and it was a little picture book, like like how a comic has the different
Oh yeah.
scenes laid out. How comics are. And it was a story about a family of penguins. And here was the daddy penguin with his egg on his feet, and the mommy was going away to hunt for fish. And then she
Yeah.
came back, and the baby was there. Like it was this whole story about penguins. And I think that might have been my first one.
Okay.
And
Okay. Yeah, it's got to start somewhere.
I know
It's got to start somewhere, and it's always starts when you're younger. I mean, that's a lot of
it
people are like,
does.
I don't really know where I started. Just I wanted to tell stories, And I'm always curious about the. I've heard the oldest. You said you're the oldest child.
Yes, I am.
I've heard the oldest because I'm the oldest as well, and I've told stories like some good ones, some not so good ones, like that got me in trouble when I was a kid. Make believe like, oh yeah, telling lies or whatever because you want to entertain.
Mm-hmm.
For other people who are usually the oldest, I think, telling those funny stories, trying to be entertaining for the younger ones because it's just fun to do. And I don't know, I kind of want to ask that question.
That would be so interesting. And as the oldest child, I mean, you have your audience right there, your
Exactly,
siblings.
exactly.
That's like,
They think you're so cool for a little bit, then they realize the truth that they don't want anything to do with you when you get older. I'm like, no, you're not cool. You're not so cool. I got my own friends.
yes.
Now, when you were working on, because this is Scotland in the 1400s,
Yeah.
how in depth the research did you have to do for your book?
Not not a whole lot. And that's
Okay.
because again, it's a novella. It's not, that 500-page novel.
Yeah. Yeah.
The nice thing about writing a short and sweet story is you can put, you know, bits of history in it. You can weave some of historical detail into it, but you don't have to go very deep. Like that was kind of nice.
Hmm.
Um, it's it's kind of tricky for me to find time to like sit down with a book and be like, okay, I'm going to learn about Scotland right now. What's better for me is listening to podcasts as
Hmm.
I'm making dinner in the evening or, folding laundry or, all those lovely things I do
Yep.
during the day.
Hmm.
So I found a podcast. Let's see, it's called the Scottish. Oh my goodness, what's it called now? The Scottish Clans podcast, I think. And
Okay.
it's a guy here in, I believe he lives in Utah and with who has Scottish heritage. His passion was just sharing about the Scottish clans. And so I started listening to it and I was like, this is actually quite interesting. The different, the names and of the clans and what they did and how they fought and why they fought. And so I would listen to those and jot down notes. And that's how I found the historical details that I wanted to put into my story.
Right.
He was talking in one podcast, he was talking about an ambush
Hmm.
that one clan had upon another on a Sunday morning. And so I thought, oh my goodness, that's tragic, but that's really interesting. And so I listened to that podcast multiple times, jotting notes down and then weaving some of those details into my book.
Okay. And I was really interested with you brought up in because the beginning of the story opens to Eleanor out in the field with the sheep. She just,
Yeah.
out there enjoying herself. She said this is her favorite spot. And
Yeah.
she was kind of complaining about, it's a little cold right now that she thinks is going to snow. But she was like, this is the season of safety. And I kind of thought about that. I'm like, okay. And she goes on to explain warriors don't usually like to run around when it's really cold outside. I'm like, that's an excellent point. I mean, it seems extremely obvious. Like, I'm not going to go out running around torching stuff and, raiding or whatever when it's literally snowing outside. It's just not good for travel and for pillaging or whatever it is they did in the 1400s. It was just something very, very obvious that I didn't even think about. Maybe it's just me, but it was a very nice point, the inner monologue she had for herself. So I do like the little details you put in there. It just sets the
Oh,
scene very
good.
nicely. It sets it very
Oh,
nice.
thank you.
You're welcome. So throughout your entire book, 'cause it's pretty. You said it's pretty small, about 120-ish pages.
Yeah, I think it clocks out about 100 and well, I'm looking at it right now. 100 and 120 exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, 120 exactly. In that entire thing, what was the most difficult scene that you had to write out?
So I think back to when I was writing this. I want to say the last scene, which is my epilogue.
Oh,
That
okay.
was the that was the most important to me. Like that the epilogue was the most important to me because like within your epilogue you have to sum everything up. There can't be any loose ends. The reader has to be like, oh, okay, this is how it ends, and just a nice closeout to a nice story.
Hmm.
So I took a lot of time not just writing it, but thinking about it and thinking like if I were reading this and I didn't know anything about the story, would it like is this a good conclusion to my story? I guess. No loose threads.
Yeah.
So I think I took the most time rewriting that one and had the most fun with that scene, I think.
Did you have to change it a whole lot, or is it just more like you wanted to really focus and make this feel like it was a solid ending? I mean, that was really what you were aiming at.
I really wanted a solid ending for sure. I really wanted it to be a satisfying ending.
Yeah, those are hard.
Those are hard. And I've read
Mhm.
books where you get done and you're like, that's it, you just
Yeah.
left me hanging. This is terrible, And
The
so
book
I
against
really,
the room.
yeah,
Mhm.
broken heart. So I
Yeah.
really wanted a book that people would be like, oh, that was a good ending. So now you need to read the rest of my book, Ryan, so you
Oh, I
know
plan on it.
how it ends.
Like you said, it's a delightful size. I mean, I got through. It says on I read it on Kindle, and
Oh
I'm
yeah.
31%. I mean, I really only started a
Hey.
couple days ago with my short 5 minute sections of
Yes.
time. So I plan on getting that done within the next couple days. I mean, that's just it's totally doable. It's absolutely doable. So, any suggestions for budding writers who would like to hopefully one day become a published author like yourself?
Yeah, I would say just write and write and write as much as you can. Because when you're
Mhm.
young, a lot of times you have so much time on your hands.
Yeah.
Just use that time. And also don't be afraid to share your work. For the longest time, I was really, I guess, shy
Mhm.
about sharing my writing because I was like, I don't think it's very good. When I did start sharing it, and I'm sure a lot of it wasn't good, but when I did start sharing bits of Enemy in the Highlands as I was writing it, I just needed to know what a few people thought. They liked it. And that was really encouraging to have me finish the book, to help me finish the book. So I would say, just write as much as you can. It doesn't have to be good. You can always edit out stuff that's not worth, keeping. And also share your work. Don't be afraid to share it. Don't be afraid to get some criticism because good constructive criticism can really make you stronger and better as a writer.
Very well said. Very well said. Now, just out of curiosity, because I've done it to myself a few times, have you ever written
Mm-hmm.
a story or a scene or something where you put it away for long enough? Let's say, life happens, you don't come back for months and months and months. You return to the story and you go, wow, this is really good. Did I write this?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've done that before. It's
Okay.
like, oh, I don't remember what happens. What happens in the story that I wrote, months ago or whatever. Oh, yeah. It's
Okay.
kind of it's kind of a delightful surprise, isn't it? Of like, man, this is
Yeah.
good.
It's kind of like finding 20 bucks in your pocket. You're like, where did this come from? This is amazing. I'm patting
Yes.
myself on the back here.
Hey,
With
did you read this? Like, this
yeah,
is good.
this person wrote this and they're really good. Come and take a look. Yeah, you try to have some humility, but it's like you got to celebrate the wins when you find them. So it's
Yeah.
it's good stuff. So now where can people go find a copy of Enemy in the Highlands?
You can find it on Amazon or anywhere that ebooks are sold. You can also go to the publisher, which is Westbow Press. Westbow has copies of it as well.
Excellent.
So those are I'd say Amazon or Westbow are the two main places to find them.
Awesome. And are you doing any physical copy in-person sales anytime soon? Big sales with the weather starting to get kind of nice?
Yeah. No, I don't have anything planned. I know there's like farmers markets and things coming out, and I've thought like, ooh, that'd be kind of fun to maybe go to one of those and try to sell some books. But at the moment, I don't have anything scheduled.
Yeah. It can be hard with a family to go and do
It'd
much
be a
because
little tricky.
it is like, oh, I want to do this, and then logistics kind of get in the way. It's just
Yeah.
how it goes. But I mean, you got to book out. That's the first hurdle is
Mm-hmm.
getting that first one done. And like I said, so far I'm really enjoying it. And
Oh,
coming from
good.
a coming from a bit of a Scottish heritage, whatever it is, from my point, I've enjoyed
Hmm.
it. I've enjoyed it so far.
Good.
I look forward to finishing it, and I will definitely write a review for you because we always need more reviews as authors.
Yes, we do. So
Yeah,
thank you.
all the reviews, of course. Well, thank you so much for your time, Emily. I really appreciate you taking, time out of your very busy schedule to meet with me and chat about your wonderful, novella.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. This was a lot of fun.
I'm really glad. And when you start pumping out more and more books, because you find those magical hours in the day to do so,
Yeah.
um, an interview is absolutely open up for you to come return and talk more about your books.
Okay, great. That sounds wonderful.
Excellent. All right, everybody. I hope you had a great time listening in, and please go get a copy of her book. Take a look, get online, read it. It won't take you very long, and it's a very nice read. So please go do that. All right, everyone. I hope you have a great time. Have a great day, and as always, stay mighty and keep reading. Are you an author? Do you know someone who is? If so, then message me, Ryan Oliver, at ryanmoliver.com to set up a free appointment to discuss being showcased on the Mighty Books podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the Mighty Books YouTube channel and share the link to this and more episodes with your friends and family. Thanks for listening. So long for now. Stay mighty and keep reading.